baby leapt and danced in my womb at her approach. Those were the days of miracles, awe, and laughter. We had given up, you see, Zacharias and I, but then, on that wondrous day, he came home angel-struck and dumb. Can you imagine Zacharias dumb? He who talked all the time? Oh, I wish you could have met him. You would have liked his mind. Yes, I will take it all in order. Let me start at the beginning. Up here on the Judean hills, to be without child means to be despised. I was thought to be too old, and I was called barren. What a terrible word, isn't it? Barren. It sounds so empty and so harsh. To be despised. So we had given up hope. But even so, I continued praying for a child without Zacharias knowing, because he would have called me a foolish old woman. But on that day, I had been praying. And suddenly here came Zacharias, dumb. I had been praying, and here he is, unable to speak. I went up to him and I said, "What has happened to you?" And he looked up, and I saw his eyes filled with a light I had never seen before. And then he brought his hand down and touched my belly. And then he started making a gesture of cradling a child. And part of me thought, that's it. He's lost his mind. But the other part was not surprised. I looked, and through the open door, there was a whole crowd of people who had followed him and were standing there staring at him. So something had happened at the temple. Zacharias looked more powerful and at the same time more humble than ever before. I wanted to share in this wondrous thing that had come to pass. So I went and I put my arms around him, and we held each other, and we laughed. And oh, my soul, we loved each other again after such a long time. And a few weeks later, I knew I was with a child. The shame had been lifted. Well, it had lifted in my mind, but I didn't want to go outside. I didn't want anybody to know. So for 5 wonderful months, I stayed home. I planted seeds and waited for the flowers. I wove soft clothes for the baby. Zachariah made toys for the baby with his hands. We would look at each other and laugh. Those were months filled with peace, and I loved that time. When I had entered my 6th month, grace and joy walked up the hill in the person of a lovely girl. I shaded my eyes from the Judean sun. The baby danced in my womb, and I felt her floating towards me. Radiance walked with her. I approached to take the weight of the bundle from her head, and suddenly I heard her voice. "Hail, Elizabeth!" and everything changed. My body became young. The baby danced in my womb, and words came to my mouth, and I had no idea where they were coming from, and I cried out, "Blessed, blessed are you, and blessed is the fruit of your womb." And how is it that I have been chosen for the mother of my Lord to come to visit me? I didn't know what I was saying, but Mary heard me, and she showed no surprise. So the words kept pouring out. "You're blessed," I said, "because you believed in what was told to you. You are carrying the promises given to all humanity. You are carrying it. Blessed are you among women." And instead of kissing her, I fell on my knees and touched her belly. And my baby kept his holy dancing in my womb. And Mariam, who had been so calm and serene, all of a sudden raised up her arms, threw back her head, and cried, "My soul magnifies the Lord, and my spirit rejoices in God, my Savior, for he has done great things for me, and blessed is his name." And her song continued with echoes of Sarah and Hannah and all the mothers who had gone before us. He has put the mighty from their throne and lifted up the lowly. He has filled the hungry with good things. Oh, afterwards, what days we passed together. Later, I would think again and again how good it was that God offered us those 3 months of waiting without knowing of the sorrows to come. How good it was to sit and think of promises fulfilled and not of life snatched away. How good it is to anticipate joy while all around you the angels sing. Well, Mariam stayed with us for 3 months. They were such good months. But one day, she got up and said, "It's now time to face the world." And she returned to Joseph. And I thought again how good it was that we had those months filled with peace, because what was to come was terror. But first, after she left, my own baby came. He came with a loud voice, his hair long and wild even then. And 8 days later, when the time came for him to be circumcised, there were all the neighbors and all the relatives gathered together, and they were all saying, "Now you will name him Zachariah like his father." And I said, "No, his name is John." And they looked at me. How could I think that? And then Zachariah asked for a tablet, and with a white stone he wrote, "Ioannis, John." And then the wonderful thing happened. Zachariah's words came pouring out. And he looked at his son and said, "And you, child, will be called the prophet of the Most High. For you will prepare the way of the Lord. The light that will come will shine upon the people, and their feet will find the way to peace. And without talking about it, both Zechariah and I knew that our John would prepare the way for the Son of Mary. Years later, when I got the news, the terrible news, Zechariah was gone by then, that my John was in Herod's dungeon, I wanted to go to Mary's child and beg him to save my boy. But I knew that what happened had happened as it was written. You don't get the news of the coming of a child from an angel and expect him to be normal like everybody else. The called of God, the chosen of God. What a terrible burden on those of us who give them birth. So John grew and ministered to the people, and how strange our people are. John called them all kinds of names out there in the wilderness, but they loved him. They flocked to hear him. They begged to be baptized by him. But one day, when that other little boy who had grown up into a man in Nazareth came to John to be baptized, John was so deeply moved, he trembled and couldn't quite touch his cousin Jesus. John knew that his time of preparation had ended. The real thing had arrived, and John accepted it with great humility. So afterwards, he turned his attention from the common people to the palace. And Herod, that weak and foolish king, threw my boy into his dungeon. At first, he did not abuse him. He even allowed his friends and me to go visit him. On that visit, he looked at me and said, "Mother, do you remember the stories you told me, how I danced in your womb at his mother's approach, and then later how sure I was of who he is? But look what is happening. Herod is still on the throne. Rome is still controlling the world. Ask him, is he the one we were waiting for, or should we wait for another?" I felt such sorrow then. Has it all been for nothing, I thought? Has it all been for nothing? I didn't get my answer then. But later, when both our sons, who had turned the world upside down, were killed. Yes, Mary's boy was murdered also. I had my answers. It was only that John had asked the wrong question. He should have asked, is this what the awaited one does? Choose to carry all of humanity's sorrows. Choose suffering over temporary fame. Choose the cross over empty life. Choose to obey God rather than man. And I had my answer. That is what John had done also. He had chosen to obey God rather than man. Oh, my son, my child, what happened to the dance of joy at your coming and his? Yes, it's all here in my heart still. And one day soon I will dance again with you.